everybody, and welcome to the Fasting Transformation Summit, where we are uncovering the most ancient, inexpensive, and powerful healing strategy known to mankind. We're talking about fasting. And, in the fasting world, there's a lot of debate about how fasting impacts men and how it impacts women. And so I brought an expert to really talk about how fasting impacts women, particularly women as they age and women over 50, because as the hormones shift and change, the way that we eat and the way that we don't eat, right, with fasting can really impact our health. And so we've got Dr. Becky Gillaspy. Hopefully I said your name right there.
Gillaspy. That's okay though.
Gillaspy. Yep. And so she graduated summa cum laude with research honors from Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1991. And she's worked as an on-air health consultant for a local ABC TV affiliate and spent most of her professional career teaching a range of college courses from anatomy to nutrition. She now works full-time helping people follow their health and weight loss goals through her website and YouTube channel that has a huge following, right? You're over, how many subscribers do you have on your YouTube now?
That's over 250,000.
Yeah, you're doing fantastic, really getting this information out. So great, and really honored to have you as part of this summit.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
For sure. And so let's start out just going through your story and how you really got into this.
Yeah, well, it just all started because I had such a fascination with the body just from even being young. And it's a perfect design. And it comes down to if we give it what it needs, it gives us what we want. And this applies at any age, but especially as we get older. Muscle is a great example as we get into menopause and beyond, men or women, actually, as we age. Muscle mass has been shown to be one of the greatest predictors of longevity and quality of life. So, but the natural tendency of the body is to lose muscle as we age. So we have to give the body exercise so we can get the things that we want back. The same thing goes with what we're learning now with circadian rhythm and how timing of our eating influences the circadian rhythm and back and forth. So there's just that fascination that I don't think it's ever going to quite go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you on that. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about female hormones a little bit. And so what happens to the female body, as we go through the different stages, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, what happens there?
Yeah, so for women with reproductive hormones, the ones we think of are estrogen and progesterone. Mm-hmm. And when we're in our reproductive years, we see that they have a relationship. So throughout the monthly cycle, estrogen kind of takes a ebb and flow through the month, whereas progesterone is low at the beginning, and then when ovulation hits, it spikes up. That's how things are going when we're in our normal reproductive years. When a woman gets into her 30s and 40s, she starts to enter perimenopause and doesn't really realize anything is different, because the only thing that's different is that she might skip ovulation every couple of months. And we don't really experience that in any significant symptom way. But what happens is that because we're not getting ovulation, progesterone doesn't take its jump up. So now what we have set up is a time throughout the entire month where estrogen is high, progesterone is low, and we call that estrogen dominance. And that by itself has some consequences for us with weight gain. So even before we start to really experience the outer signs and symptoms of menopause, we're already starting to set up some issues where it's easier to gain weight.
Yeah, because estrogen really has kind of a growth effect on the body. It's telling issues of the body to grow, and obviously weight gain would be a factor with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, as it's becoming more and more dominant. And then as we move on in our age and we get closer to reaching menopause, the woman will experience irregularities. So in her menstrual cycle. So she might have a very heavy period that lasts for 3 weeks and then have nothing for 3 months. And as things progress, then there's a period of time over 12 months that the woman doesn't experience a period at all. And then that signifies menopause. Kind of the interesting thing about menopause is it's a one-day event.
Yeah.
It's, we don't tend to think of it that way, but it is by definition the 1 year anniversary from your last menstrual
Mm.
cycle. And then after that point, then a woman's has a new normal low of estrogen and progesterone. And that has consequences
Yeah.
as well for weight gain. A couple of things. It's been shown that low estrogen is tied with low resting uh, energy expenditure, like which basically means that it takes fewer calories for us to run our bodies
Mm.
through a
So your
normal
metabolism
day.
goes
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
hmm
Hmm.
Another thing that women experience is an increased propensity to put on belly fat.
Mm.
And that seems to be related to low estrogen. They've never really worked out the mechanism of why that works, but it's something that I think most women, after they've reached menopause, will start to notice that even if they were pear-shaped to begin with in life, that they have now a more of an ability to put on weight in the belly, and that, of course, has issues with metabolic syndrome and things of that sort.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so a lot of women feel like, well, as I got into my 40s and 50s, I couldn't do what I was doing in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that has
yeah,
to do with that starting, well, in the beginning when they're in the perimenopause, they don't have a big drop of estrogen, but it's just this disproportionate ratio of estrogen to progesterone.
exactly.
And then as they hit menopause, go postmenopause, now all the hormones go down. And so
Right.
they're not able to burn fat and have that same metabolism. Let's talk about some other symptoms, right? I know a lot of women talk about hot flashes, different things like that. So let's talk about some of the other symptoms.
Yeah, so this all plays into what I call the perfect storm of weight gain once we reach menopause. So we experience other symptoms other than just belly fat. Belly fat uh, will one of the many things that it will do. It will increase our insulin resistance in our
Mm,
body.
yeah.
Insulin resistance is a very common weight loss barrier. Uh, Basically, insulin is our nutrient storing hormone. So when we eat, its job is to take those nutrients that we took from the food and put them in storage or put them in cells where they can be burned. Well, when we become insulin resistant, our cells are literally resisting insulin's action. So we end up with high blood sugar, we end up with high insulin levels. And that, I said insulin is the nutrient storing hormone. Well, it only works in one direction, right? So if we're storing, we're not able to pull energy out of storage, like in places like our fat cells. So this is kind of the start of the perfect storm.
Yeah.
So we have this low estrogen, we've got more belly fat, that's contributing to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance causes weight gain, also causes
Mm,
cravings because our cells are not seeing the nutrients, so they're asking us for more. And so that kind of loops around and gives us more belly fat. But then we have other symptoms, like you had mentioned, like hot flashes, and they
yeah.
can interrupt sleep. Well, sleep can interrupt or can be a leading factor into insulin resistance. And if we have poor diet on top of that, if we aren't exercising like we used to when we were younger, we have more of that. We have chronic stress. So all of these things are coming back into play and creating that perfect storm of weight
Yeah,
gain.
vicious cycle.
Yes.
Exactly. One thing compounding on the next.
hmm
And high insulin also activates inflammatory gene pathways too,
Yeah.
right? So it activates inflammation throughout the body.
Yeah. It's not just about weight
Yeah.
gain for certain. Yes. Inflammation is the underlying problem for so many chronic diseases.
Yeah. And even those fat cells too. I know research has found that they're actually releasing inflammatory cytokines as well. So the more body fat you have, the more inflammation you're producing, and that's going to affect your bone health, your joint health, your brain, all these different factors. So yeah, it's really important. And I know you're an expert at helping women who are going through these seasons of change, in
hmm
particular, as they hit that menopause season, to help reverse these kind of inflammatory conditions and help them lose weight. And so fasting is one of the tools you have in your tool belt. So how do you approach that with them?
Yeah, fasting is a great tool for women at menopause because it helps us to disrupt that perfect storm cycle. And one of the ways that it does that is it works with insulin resistance. intermittent fasting, as we're starting to learn more and more about it, is really beneficial because it allows us to work with our body's natural circadian rhythm. We have that circadian rhythm that kind of wakes up with the dawn of the day, but we also have peripheral clocks in our organs that are responding to food intake. And so when we start eating, our body is the most insulin sensitive as it will be. And so by intermittent fasting and just shortening the duration of hours that we're eating in a day, we are enabling our body to take in its nutrients at a time when it is most able to handle those and process them and put them where they need to be. So that is one way intermittent fasting helps us. Another thing is that it simply decreases the amount of insulin that we have because there's no food coming in. Insulin's job is a nutrient storer, right? So if there's no nutrients there, we don't have to rely on it, and that allows us to increase insulin sensitivity as well. I would also say that while this isn't a physiological reason why intermittent fasting is so important for women at menopause to pay attention to, it satisfies what I refer to as the 3 E's. And those mean that it's easy to do, it's enjoyable, and it's effective. And when we have those 3 E's in place, we comply, we stick with it. I say intermittent fasting has a stickiness factor because someone tries it, they tend to stick with it, which is not common with diet changes. And it's easy to do because you're not doing anything, right? So it's freeing up time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's enjoyable because unlike diets, you can practice intermittent fasting and still partake in dinner with your family or your friends who might not be on your diet. It's certainly effective.
To be devil's advocate on the enjoyable, a lot of people, if they're used to eating 3, 4, 5 meals a day and they really enjoy food, they would think, oh my gosh, I've got to give up a meal. That's not going to be enjoyable. Right. But the reality is you actually feel better as you adapt to it. It's almost like, it's like an exercise high in a sense. You just feel you have more energy, better mental clarity, right? You're able to be more productive and efficient. And just like you said, it saves time, right? It saves energy that you would be normally putting into making food. And you can still eat, like, if you enjoy certain breakfast foods, right? Ideally healthy choices, you can still eat those at a different time. Like I never eat breakfast. My wife and I, we don't eat breakfast, but we have breakfast for dinner on Sunday nights where we have eggs and chicken sausage and kale and onions, and we'll make keto pancakes and stuff like that. So we can still, change it around and do that if you enjoy, foods at a certain period of time.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you that of those 3 E's, probably the one that perks people's interest is enjoyable. It's like enjoyable. Well, I enjoy eating. So, and I certainly get that. And I also get that we have to overcome a lot of mental hurdles that we grew up with. A lot of mantras that we have just been told over and over again, and they seem like they would be fact because we've heard them so long. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Not that you have to, you could have breakfast and intermittent fast later, but most people choose to skip breakfast. If I skip a meal, I'm going to lose muscle. Eating throughout the day every few hours revs up my metabolism. So, now I'm going to hurt myself. So we have to, it's hard to go against those mantras because, mom told us that, grandma told us that, society, like news blips tell us that. But the reality is that the research on intermittent fasting shows us that those things are not true. Intermittent fasting skipping a meal is not going to be enough to break down muscle. Our bodies are very well equipped to handle periods of time without eating, and we have stored nutrients that it prefers to use. Stored glucose. We have fat that it will opt to burn before it's going to burn muscle. breakfast doesn't, our hormones are what wake us up, right? Cortisol starts rising before we even wake up, before the sun comes up. And that's what really revs us up and gets us prepared for our day. So it's hard to go against those mantras and step out and give this a try. And there's a lot of fears there, which I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's say somebody's ready to get started with intermittent fasting. Okay. They're used to eating, oatmeal for breakfast, let's say a big chicken salad for lunch, and meat, potatoes, and vegetables for dinner. Right. And that's their normal cycle. And they're like, you know what, I'm going to try intermittent fasting. And I think I'm going to try missing breakfast. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What should they experience in the beginning, and then as they go forward with that?
Yes, I actually I have a forum where I have members, and I actually posed that question to them not too long ago to get kind of their feel of how they felt about intermittent fasting initially, and then how they felt after they kind of became pros and understood it a little bit better. And it was interesting. There was a lot of split ideas. Some had a lot of trepidation about getting started, and would I be able to do this? Am I going to starve? And things like that. And then others were gung ho to go into it. I find that when you start, you could still have 3 meals in a day. Just tighten up your eating window, and I think that's a more comforting way if you have any trepidation about trying it. So I recommend that people start with what I call the easy method, which is 12-12 intermittent fasting. Literally means split your day into 2. So you have 12 hours where you're consuming all of your calories, and you have 12 hours where you're not. One of the easiest ways that I feel to get yourself comfortable with intermittent fasting is to eat in a way that stabilizes your blood sugar. And that has so much to do with your food choices. We have we have different nutrients in the foods that we eat, and they affect our blood sugar differently. And so we have sugar and refined carbs at this end. When we eat those, they cause a spike, and insulin comes in and rushes that into our cells, but then we dip down. And if we're eating a lot of refined carbohydrates, and these would be like muffins for breakfast, or waffles, or pancakes, or those types of things, even like a burger bun, pasta, these types of things that are going to break down very quickly. If that's the mainstay of our diet, we're making intermittent fasting much harder for ourselves than we have to, because when we spike up and then we dip, that dip is that time where everyone's experienced that like insatiable hunger. It's like, oh my goodness, I have to get something to eat. It's our body warning us that, we're low here. We need to get some nutrients, and celery's not going to do it. It's looking for a Tootsie Roll or something like that, right? Something
they
quick
call
and
it
easy.
Feeling hangry, right? Where you're
exactly
kind of irritable and hungry. Yeah, that reactive hypoglycemia that takes place.
Yeah. And getting away from them, they're too. These are scary things to be facing if you've had a struggles throughout life with losing weight and things like that. Shortening the amount of hours that you're eating, getting rid of refined carbs, and what I call zero sugar. I have a very simple strategy I call 0-1-2-3 strategy. It's just 4 daily habits that when you do them, they really enhance your ability to do intermittent fasting. And in fact, the 3 has to do with that. So it stands for 0 sugar, 1 large salad, 2 cups of cooked non-starchy vegetables, and 3 hours before bed, stop eating. So 0 sugar. A lot of times when you start to say that, the walls go up in front of people, and they're like, oh, don't take my sugar away, and it's because it is an addictive substance. There's no shame in wanting sugar. One of my favorite sayings is, I was a terrible sugaraholic, and I have the cavities to prove it. I was hooked on sugar from first thought in the morning till the end of the day. So I totally understand that. But what the 0-1-2-3 strategy does for you is it helps you to add volume to your diet as you're subtracting the sugar. And of course, that salad and the vegetable, you can have healthy whole fats added there. and proteins, nuts and seeds. Avocado slices are great to
Yeah.
keep hunger under control, keep your blood sugar stable. So the whole concept is to keep your blood sugar stable so that you're not dipping into that insatiable hunger and those cravings.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you obviously you're focusing on trying to keep your blood sugar stable so you're not getting these ups and downs. And
Hmm.
you start them with 12 hours, which is really a lot easier than what most people think. It's like,
Yes.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and you finish
Hmm.
dinner at 7, let's say, but you got to get up at 6, right? If you just drink water, drink 8 to 16 ounces of water in the morning, you won't even feel hungry until,
Yeah.
at least 7. So it
Yeah.
allows you to kind of push that eating window
Hmm.
and tighten that up pretty good.
Yeah.
And then where does somebody go from there?
Then you can just simply add an extra hour at a time,
Mhm.
or however you want, to your fasting window. So you can extend that to 13 hours and 14
Yeah,
hours if you want to just go step by step. 16/8 is become kind of the accepted and often studied way of performing intermittent
yeah.
fasting,
So that would
which
be
means,
16 hours fasting,
yeah,
8-hour eating window, like 10 a.m. to 6 or something like that.
yep.
Yep. And somebody could actually eat 3 meals if they wanted to in that 8-hour window.
They could, certainly. Yes, or you could have 2 meals and a snack or things of that
Exactly.
sort.
Yeah.
The challenge that a lot of people will have, and but yet an important part of success with intermittent fasting, is the not eating late at night.
Yeah.
And, with the 0, 1, 2, 3, that was the 3 hours before
Mhm.
bed, stop eating. That not only helps with your metabolism, it's also going to help you sleep better because you're not going to
Yeah.
be putting uh, energy into your core, which is creating heat and keeping you from sleeping. And those, that is a challenging time for anyone, but it's important. One thing that I talk about with women is using something I call stoppers. It's simply a food, drink, or activity that will separate you from the act of eating after dinner,
Mm.
so that your brain has time to register that you're full, and you can move away from that, because we have this primal thing in our bodies that um, we we just want to keep eating once we
Yeah.
start. I think that was probably because we didn't used to have 24/7 convenience stores. You had to
Yeah.
eat when the food was available. But we can't do that in today's society. So we have to have a strategy for stopping. I find that um, just putting a piece of sugar-free gum by your dinner plate and popping that in, almost unconsciously right after you're done, it will change the taste in your mouth. If you
Hmm.
don't want to use gum, you can brush your teeth, floss your teeth.
Yeah.
You can, anything like that that's going to change the taste in your mouth or give you
Yeah.
time. A cup of hot tea that has to be sipped will give you that time to separate, and then you can, because you want to start that fasting window at least 3 hours before bedtime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think eating late at night, it can definitely be addictive, right? So a lot of people get into this cycle where that's just kind of what they do. And oftentimes it's related to poor sleep habits, right? And it kind of compound on themselves. And also a lot of times there's a lot of emotional issues that are just not being dealt with that, in a sense we can easily use food to kind of drown out, going deeper and addressing certain emotional issues too. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea to have those stoppers and kind of create a
Mhm.
ritual around this idea of, okay, I'm finished eating for the day. Now my
Yes.
fasting is going to start at this point. So yeah, I think that's really, really helpful. And if let's say, you've got somebody that possibly works late at night. All
Hmm.
right. How should they kind of tailor their window? Let's say they work, I don't know, 3 to 11 p.m. or 4 to 12 or something along those lines.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times they're working and then they get home and then they're like, I just want to eat something and go to sleep. Right. So what
Hmm.
could they do?
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Uh, Shift work is a challenge, and it's certainly been shown that it's a challenge for your metabolism to
Yeah.
work in strange hours like that. But there is Dr. Sachin Panda, who is kind of a a leader
Mhm.
in time restricted eating, which is what we're basically talking about, restricting the number of hours that you eat, had done some work with this and had discussed this like night shift work, and he found that despite working the crazy hours, shrinking down the number of hours that you are eating is still
Yeah.
going to give you some benefits. Now, 3 hours before bed, stop eating. Well, you might have to get creative, and it might just not work out for you exactly. I would try to work toward that.
Yeah.
You might need to have a larger lunch and then
Yeah.
have a small dinner at work that can tide you over.
Yeah.
That can be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Or for those people, they may try eating breakfast and lunch and then fasting through dinner and just,
Mhm.
hydrating well in the evening and seeing how they feel, seeing how they respond with that. And I think, it's we're very used to, this kind of idea. Oftentimes eating can be just like a break for us in a sense,
Mhm.
right? So I think it's kind
Conditioning,
of
conditioning,
kind of
yeah.
repatterning. And what I always find is it usually takes roughly 3 to maybe up to 7 days to kind of break out of a certain habit. Like
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, I'm so used to eating breakfast. Usually
Yeah.
for me, I've seen people after about 3, 5 days, maybe for some about a week of missing
Mhm.
that, they no longer are hungry in the morning, right? And they've
Mhm.
kind of reset some of those hunger hormones like ghrelin.
Yeah.
And it kind of the same thing with dinner too. Like I never thought I could fast through dinner. I always thought, well, I have to eat a good dinner before
Yeah.
I go to sleep. And now it's like I do it 2 days a week. I don't eat dinner.
Mhm.
I just eat lunch, and that's it for the day. And I feel good. I actually sleep better. My heart rate variability is better. I feel amazing, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of these things can be adapted to,
Mhm.
which can help. Now, I think one thing that's important we need to discuss is because a lot of times we can get a little bit overemphasize the fasting. We see the healing uh, potential of fasting, and oftentimes we can start going down that route. But how important is eating really good quality foods and even feasting when you are eating in your eating window?
Well, the quality of foods is absolutely key, because if you're eating junk food, I think you're going to have a really hard time losing weight for one thing, if that's your goal, or getting the health benefits from it. But also just sticking with it, because you are so up and down on your blood sugar. Um, so yeah, whole foods. What I like to look at are all of the aspects. So healthy fats. I think we did ourselves a disservice by being
Mhm.
so anti-fat
Yeah,
for so
yeah.
long. There's certainly unhealthy fats,
Hmm.
but there are certainly healthy whole fats, and those foods will help to satiate you,
Yeah,
keep you feeling full for a long time. Leave your system very slowly. It's not going to have a big bump or a change on your blood sugar. They're wonderful for intermittent fasting. So what are we talking about with that? So whole fats are plants and animals. So we
hmm,
have plant world, we have nuts, seeds, avocados.
yeah.
In the animal world, we have meats, fish, chicken. Well, chicken's not a real high fat, but we have
Butter.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have different oils and fats that we can add to vegetables.
yeah.
Fat's a great thing to add to vegetables.
Oh
It
yeah,
helps us to absorb the fat soluble vitamins and minerals in there.
yeah,
With proteins, we can just get a moderate amount of protein to get a sufficient amount in our bodies. Carbohydrates or run the gamut, right? So we have, on one end we've got the sugary treats, and then on the other end we've got the non-starchy vegetables. So we want to go eat as much
hmm,
from this end, this non-starchy vegetable. But yes, those whole foods and intermittent fasting. Uh, it's not a home run just out of the park. Oh, if I just don't eat, I'll lose
yeah,
weight. Well, it might be might be possible. However, you have to work with your body. Your body does need some nutrients, uh,
yeah.
so that it can go for a long time. So diet is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people it's not really about eating a lower amount of food. It's about eating less often, right? And
Hmm.
so eat till you're satiated. When you do eat, just don't eat, for this long extended period, and
Hmm.
try to cut it down to, 3 meals max, one to
Hmm.
2 meals, if you're able to do that. And when you do eat, if you're eating 2 meals, eat really well, eat till you're really satiated. I mean,
Hmm.
if you have gastrointestinal issues, burping, belching, you're feeling you've got indigestion, you're feeling cramping, things like that. You may have overeaten, right? However, if you're not noticing that, then you probably haven't overeaten. Your body's digesting and assimilating it,
Hmm.
and that's going to help you feel satiated, eating really, really well there.
Yeah.
So one other thing is, you really live this lifestyle. So I want to know, what does your day-to-day lifestyle look like? Like, what are you doing from the morning you wake up? What do your meals look like? What are you doing to kind of get your mind ready for the day? What does your fitness look like? I think our listeners would really love to know from an expert like you, Dr. Becky,
Yeah.
on how you go about your day-to-day routine.
Yeah. Well, so I get up between 6:15 in the morning. My husband and I come down and have coffee and sit and oftentimes watch educational videos on
Yeah.
from different.
Now, is that black coffee, or is that like coffee with butter or something?
I drink black
Black
coffee,
coffee.
and my husband usually does in the morning, and then he'll put cream in later. He tries to keep
Yeah.
black coffee during the most of his fasting period.
Yep.
I started drinking coffee because I was in college and I wanted the caffeine benefits. So I just drank
Yeah.
it black, and it's just what I've gotten used to. I never really was much for cream. Not that I'm opposed to it, but
Yeah, and the research actually shows that caffeine in general, and coffee can enhance autophagy and
yeah.
enhance the benefits of fasting. I always tell people, if you drink coffee and then you notice you have more cravings a few hours after, you're probably not responding well, because there are some people that are poor caffeine metabolizers, or maybe they've got
Hmm.
a food sensitivity to it. But if you drink coffee, you really should feel great, right? And if you
Yeah.
feel great, there's nothing wrong with it. So continue.
Coffee has a lot of health benefits.
Yeah. Yep.
It can, if we drink it too late. It's got a long half life. It's like
Yeah.
6 hour half life. So 6 hours after you drink it, half of the caffeine's still in your system. So if you're drinking it until 4 o'clock in the evening, you're
Could have problems.
possibly getting some sleep issues. Some people will be sensitive to it and get jittery and things of that sort. But yeah, it has a lot of antioxidants,
Yeah.
which are beneficial to our cell health. Autophagy, it does help. Now, I think the only ones I've ever seen were on animals studies,
Yeah.
and I'm not totally sure on that. Okay,
Yep.
but still, it's promising.
Yeah.
Autophagy is our body's self cleaning system. So it's our way of getting in there and repurposing cells, getting rid of damaged cells, recycling some to make new proteins and things of that sort. So definitely benefits to coffee. But yeah, so definitely a coffee drinker, and I'll drink it throughout the morning. But I'm not eating yet. I will exercise most days of the
Mhm.
week and on a fasted stomach. And I will do things like I do weight training on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I'm lifting either upper body or lower body on alternate days. And in between there, I do some type of aerobic. Sometimes I'll do high intensity interval training if I'm really on a program, and
Mhm.
sometimes I'll just walk just to get some movement and exercise in there to combat all the sitting that I do during the day. And then I will break my fast anywhere. I will switch it up. So I really do listen to my body. I will always intermittent fast for a minimum of uh, 13 hours.
Yeah.
But and a lot of times I'll just go right to lunch. So I might finish eating the night before at 7:30, and I'll have a large salad. My one of my strategy. I have a salad every day, 95% of the time. But it's which people might say, well, that sounds boring. Well, it's not boring if you know how to make a salad, right?
Yeah.
And you put good, healthy fats on it, and I look forward to it every day. So that's usually what breaks my fast, and then from there, I rarely feel a need to have a snack in the afternoon. But if I do, raw almonds are a lot of times the go-to for me. I will also use full-fat yogurt and blueberries as either a snack in the afternoon, or if I have breakfast that day, I will have
Mm.
that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of times I'll do 2 meals and a snack, or 3 meals, just in a condensed period of time.
So
And
your
then
typical fasting window is it what, like a 16-8 are you usually doing or?
it's anywhere. uh, I'm on maintenance, so I'm not really like looking to lose weight.
Yeah.
So I really, at this, for me personally, I look at it as just a way of helping me to easily maintain my weight. And so I will fluctuate and I listen to my body. So it's
Yeah.
if I'm feeling like, it's 10 o'clock, I want to eat something and it's only been 13 hours since I ate last. I don't stress over that. I
Yeah.
just go ahead and maybe have yogurt or something of that sort.
Yeah.
If I am really busy and working on my computer and working on a project or something like that, honestly, I won't even think about it. And my dog usually is the conditioned one who decides that it's lunchtime, and then it perks my mind up to go eat. So that would be, I would say my typical fasting is 13 hours to 16 hours.
Okay. Yep. So you're really listening to your body and just being intuitive about
Mhm.
when you're starting out that eating window.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. Now, if you're just getting started, and depending on how much you want to change your diet, if you're really not that interested in changing your diet, you're just looking to try intermittent fasting, I would say that you're probably going to be happiest with your results if you are being more consistent on a daily basis. If you're really working it with dietary changes and you're eating whole foods and staying away from the refined carbs, I think you can play with it a little bit more. So you might want to do 16/8 intermittent fasting 5 days a week, and then on the weekend have 3 meals. You can do that. You have the freedom of that with intermittent fasting if your diet is good.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always have to be exactly the same eating window, fasting window.
Hmm.
And what I found is that men and women that are overweight tends to be a lot easier in a sense to fast. And then women that are especially very lean women, if they're doing too tight a eating window for too long, too many consecutive days, not everybody, some do great with it, but some women can really have more stress, trouble sleeping,
Hmm.
fatigue, right? Hair loss, different issues like
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
so, kind of varying it a little bit, adding a little bit more feasting, or even doing like every other day, doing an intermittent fast, or even crescendo fasting, where you're doing it 2 days a week, like a non-consecutive days, like a Monday, Thursday, or something like
Hmm.
that, can tend to work better. So, I think different body types are going to respond a little bit differently.
I agree, and there's a lot of variations in the way that you can do intermittent fasting. The only one we've really touched on is the time restricted eating,
Yeah,
restricting the number of hours in a day. But you can do alternate day fasting. My husband and I went through an experiment with that, and
yeah.
found that it was very doable. A modified
Hmm.
alternate day fast, I should specify, and what that meant was that every other day you were still consuming calories but much fewer than on the other day. So
Like less
a
than 500.
yeah, a fasting day, they typically go around 500. They technically, I guess, would like you to go about 25% of your normal,
Yeah,
but they kind of just zero that in for 500-600 calories for
right.
females and males. So it's a lot easier for people just to kind of go with that, and then eat normally on the alternate days. And that is, what it comes down to with intermittent fasting and your comfort level is your comfort level. What is your lifestyle like? Does that work for you? Then that's great to do alternate day fasting like that. Or is it better for you to skip breakfast because you have work meetings and things like that, and it just fits your lifestyle? But these are trial and error, and trial and error is very important with intermittent fasting because everyone finds their own kind of groove that works for them.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I think this is something you just got to get started with, and you start to, in a sense, fasting really helps you listen to your body better too. And
Hmm.
I think that's a really important intelligence to build.
Hmm.
It's really like a skill that you're developing, where you're listening to your body and how your body is responding to different things. And I've been intermittent fasting since 2005, and it really, honestly, there wasn't much research on it back then and
Yeah.
whatnot. I just found that it really helped me.
Yeah.
Helped me. I used to have irritable bowel, and it really helped me with that.
Hmm.
Helped me actually maintain muscle mass,
Yeah.
believe it or not. But I actually found my ideal. It took me like 12 years. It wasn't until like 2018 till I really found exactly the fasting strategy that seems to work best for me. What
Hmm.
I do 5 days a week, I eat 2 meals, and usually in like a 6 hour window.
Yeah.
And then 2 days a week, I just eat one meal. Now, when I'm eating meals, I eat a lot, right? I eat very
Yeah.
large meals. And so I'm consuming a lot of calories in those meals, but I find that my energy's better, my muscle tissue, I'm stronger, I recover
Hmm.
from my exercise better, my brain feels, just feels fully alive on a schedule like that. But again, it took me over 10 years of experimenting with it
Hmm.
before I was able to find that. So
Yeah.
I think with all the Facebook groups and all the summits like this and people like you on YouTube, there's more information out and people can shorten that window before they find what works best for them. But if
Hmm.
you just get going with this, after a few months, I think you'll really start to identify where you're seeing the best results, right? And you got to listen to your body and your energy.
Hmm.
It's not just about weight loss, like you talked about. I mean, you can be very lean, thin
Hmm.
people like me. I'm 8% body fat. You can be lean and really get great benefits. I do it for energy. I do it for mental clarity,
Hmm.
right? And you just got to experiment with it. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, just the fact that you had mentioned, being in a group and the strength of community, and it is wonderful that intermittent fasting has been so embraced by many different healthy diets. It doesn't matter what diet core that you follow, you'll find that proponents of that uh, utilize intermittent fasting. So it has been one of those things that ties us all together, and we can pretty much all agree on that there are benefits. But the strength of community and knowing, especially for women over the age of 50, when we think that we have all of these preconceived notions of how we're supposed to eat that have become so ingrained in us, knowing that other women are doing this, in the forum that I participate in a lot in my program. A lot of those women are over 60, over 70, doing intermittent fasting on a regular basis and having no problems. Now, of course, if you're on medication, or if you have a
Mm.
condition that is affected by your blood sugar, you do have to be smart about it before you start that. But if you are a generally healthy person, regardless of your age, you can find the benefits of intermittent fasting. You just have to ease yourself in, see that you can do it, and feel good, and then just close that window a little bit more and a little bit more, and you'll start to see the benefits.
Well, that's great. And Dr. Becky, this has been such a great interview. You've just given us so many great action points, action steps, and insight on intermittent fasting. And any last words of inspiration? And where can people find out more about you and also the program and the community support that you provide?
Yeah, just the fact that I think despite being over 50, there's intermittent fasting has been found to be safe to do if you're in generally good health, and you can give it a try. Just shorten up your eating window, and I think you'll do fine. If you're looking for a place to start with getting whole foods back into your diet and get rid of the sugar, which is going to help stabilize your blood sugar, they can get my 0123 strategy for free over on my website, which is drbeckyfitness.com. They can find me on YouTube, which by just searching YouTube for Dr. Becky Fitness, I'm sure I'll come up, and same with social media. So those would be the avenues that people could find me.
Well, there you have it, guys. It's Dr. Becky Fitness. Definitely check her out. YouTube, she's got a lot of great content on there. So definitely check that out. And I want to leave the listeners with this one last thought. Your body is an incredible self-healing organism. And, fasting really has the ability to unlock your dormant healing potential. No matter what you're struggling with, the healing power is there. And we just need to unlock it and remove the interference. And fasting has an amazing ability to do that, and it's safe, it's powerful, and it just might transform your life. So start applying the principles that we talked about today, and I believe that you'll see amazing results. We'll see you on a future interview. Be blessed, everybody.